The legend of Carroll Shelby. From chicken farmer to racing icon, everyone knows Carroll Shelby as the mastermind behind the legendary Shelby Cobra, the Ford GT, and even the Dodge Viper. But before he became one of the most celebrated car designers in history, Shelby was one of the greatest race car drivers of his generation. And before that, he was a chicken farmer in a small Texas town. While Shelby had a passion for building cars, there was one person he absolutely despised: Enzo Ferrari. Their bitter rivalry played out on the world's biggest racetracks, culminating in an epic battle that pitted Shelby against Ferrari and, more famously, Ford against Ferrari. But before we get to that, let's go back to where it all began: Leesburg, Texas, 1930. The early years. A love for speed. During the Great Depression, small-town races were a cheap and thrilling form of entertainment. A 7-year-old Carroll Shelby sat in the stands with his father, mesmerized by the speed and the roar of the engines. Soon, he was building soapbox races with friends, and by 14, he took his father's mail car for a spin, hitting 85 miles per hour before the police pulled him over. A natural leader, Shelby graduated from Woodrow Wilson High School in Dallas and later joined the Army Air Corps during World War II. While he loved flying, what he truly loved was speed. After the war, he settled down with his high school sweetheart and started a family. To make a living, he became a chicken farmer, a career that, surprisingly, made him good money. But racing still called to him. From chickens to checkered flags. In his free time, Shelby began racing, first in a Milligram, then a Jaguar, and even an Allard. He won in all of them. One day, he showed up at a race still wearing his striped chicken farming overalls. The vertical stripes became his signature look. Then, disaster struck. In 1952, Shelby lost his entire chicken farm to Newcastle disease. With no income and no livestock, he had nothing left to lose, so he threw himself fully into racing. It turned out, he had a natural talent. By 1953, he raced 9 times, winning 5 and placing second in 2. But race car driving wasn't exactly lucrative. His family lived on canned beans for months. Still, his skills caught the attention of major racing teams, and in 1954, he got his first shot in Europe, racing for Aston Martin. But Shelby had a dangerous secret: he had been born with a bad heart. The high-speed stress of racing took a toll on him, and he often popped nitroglycerine pills under his tongue to stave off chest pains. He never told his team he could collapse at any moment. Despite the danger, Shelby kept pushing. Between 1955 and 1957, he raced in 81 competitions, winning more than 40 of them. Sports Illustrated named him Driver of the Year twice. More importantly, Shelby was studying the craft of car making. He learned from companies like Aston Martin, Maserati, and, most notably, Ferrari. He even approached Enzo Ferrari himself, hoping to work together. But Enzo ignored him again and again, treating Shelby as if he were beneath him. Over time, Shelby's frustration turned into obsession. One day, he vowed he would take Ferrari down. The greatest victory, and the end of a racing career. By 1959, Shelby was at the top of his game. He entered the grueling 24 Hours of Le Mans, the world's toughest endurance race, driving for Aston Martin. For 20 hours, he pushed his car to the limit, despite excruciating chest pains. Then, in a dramatic twist, Ferrari's engine gave out. Shelby crossed the finish line first, achieving the biggest victory of his career. He had beaten Ferrari, but the win came at a cost. His heart could no longer take the strain. That race would be the last time Carroll Shelby ever competed. From driver to car builder, forced to leave racing behind, Shelby looked for his next chapter. He started a driving school but had a bigger dream: to build a high-performance sports car for the average person, one that could also dominate the racetrack. The only problem? He had no money. But Shelby was a born salesman. He convinced AC Cars to provide him with chassis and bodies, claiming he already had Ford engines lined up. Then, he went to Ford and convinced them to supply engines, claiming he already had the AC chassis. Neither was true, but it worked. Ford even gave him $225,000 in funding. With that, Shelby founded Shelby American in Southern California, assembling a team of hot rod builders and race mechanics. Together, they created his masterpiece, the Shelby Cobra. Shelby hyped up his car to the press, but in reality, he only had one prototype. To make it seem like he had more, he repainted it a different color for each journalist who came to visit. When he finally entered the Cobra in a race, it destroyed the Corvette Stingray until it broke an axle. But it was enough to prove one thing: Shelby had built something special. The Ford vs. Ferrari showdown. Henry Ford II took notice of Shelby's Cobra. Ford had tried to buy Ferrari but had been double-crossed by Enzo, making him furious. Now, with Shelby's help, he saw a way to beat Ferrari where it hurt most, Le Mans. Shelby took charge of Ford's racing program, refining the GT40 to challenge Ferrari. But in 1964 and 1965, Ferrari still won. Ford was humiliated. By 1966, Shelby had rebuilt the GT40 into a powerhouse, now known as the GT40 Mark II. Ford poured millions into the effort, determined to win. At Le Mans 1966, the battle was fierce, but this time, Shelby's cars held strong. After 24 grueling hours, Ford finished first, second, and third, finally defeating Ferrari. It was the ultimate revenge. Shelby and Ford continued their dominance, winning again in 1967. But as racing regulations changed in the 1970s, Shelby stepped away, focusing on other ventures, including a chili business. A second act, the Dodge Viper. In 1982, an old friend called Lee Iacocca, now at Chrysler, wanted Shelby to help develop performance cars. But there was a problem. Shelby's heart was failing. In a twist of fate, a donor heart became available in Las Vegas, and at 67 years old, Shelby received a life-saving transplant. He returned to work, helping design one of Chrysler's most iconic cars, the Dodge Viper. The final lap. In the 2000s, another familiar name called Ford. They wanted Shelby back to help revive their performance line. At 82 years old, Shelby helped create the Ford GT, the Shelby GT500, and the Mustang GT-H. Carroll Shelby had come full circle, leaving an undeniable mark on the automotive world. He passed away in 2012 at age 89, but his legacy lives on. From racing to car design, he changed the industry forever. His name remains synonymous with speed, power, and ingenuity. And as long as there are fast cars, the legend of Carroll Shelby will never die.